There is a small mystery that quietly appears in many homes whenever the rainy season arrives. A door that used to glide open without any effort suddenly begins to drag, scrape, or stick in its frame. Nothing about the door looks damaged, yet it feels as if it somehow grew larger overnight. Then, when the weather becomes dry again, the problem disappears just as quietly as it arrived. So why do wooden doors swell and become difficult to open during rainy weather? The answer lies in the surprising way wood interacts with moisture in the air, a process that continues long after a tree has been cut and turned into building material. Let's take a closer look at why wooden doors swell during rainy weather, right here on History of Simple Things. Wood may appear solid and unchanging, but it still behaves like the natural material it once was. One of its most important properties is that it is hygroscopic, meaning it naturally absorbs and releases moisture from the surrounding air. Inside the structure of wood are microscopic cell walls made mostly of cellulose and other natural compounds. These structures attract water molecules, allowing wood to take in moisture from humid air. Because of this, wood constantly exchanges moisture with its environment. When humidity rises, the moisture content within the wood slowly increases. When the air becomes dry, the wood gradually releases that moisture back into the atmosphere. This exchange happens continuously, even in finished wood products like furniture, flooring, and doors. Although the process is slow and invisible, it directly affects the physical properties of wood over time. Rainy weather dramatically increases humidity in the surrounding environment. When the air becomes saturated with water vapor during storms or prolonged rainfall, wooden objects inside homes begin responding to that moisture in the air. Even if rain never touches the door itself, the humid atmosphere is enough to trigger moisture absorption. As the wood slowly absorbs water vapor, its internal moisture content rises. This increase causes the fibers inside the wood to expand slightly. The change in size may seem extremely small, but doors are typically installed with only narrow gaps around their edges so they can swing freely. When a wooden door expands even by a few millimeters, the extra width can eliminate those small gaps. As a result, the door begins pressing against the frame, creating friction that makes it harder to open or close. To understand why wood expands when it absorbs moisture, it helps to look at its microscopic structure. Wood is composed of millions of tiny tubular cells that once carried water and nutrients through a living tree. Even after the wood is cut and dried, these cells remain intact. The walls of these cells act somewhat like microscopic sponges. When moisture enters the wood, the cell walls absorb water molecules and swell slightly. This process is often called imbibition, which occurs when a solid material absorbs water without dissolving. Each individual cell expands only a tiny amount, but a wooden door contains millions of them working together. When large numbers of cells absorb moisture at the same time, their combined expansion causes the entire piece of wood to grow slightly in size. Another important detail about wood is that it does not expand equally in every direction. The internal grain structure of wood determines how it changes shape when moisture levels fluctuate. The grain represents the direction of the long fibers that once transported water through the tree. These fibers are very resistant to stretching along their length, which means wood expands very little in that direction. Instead, most expansion happens across the grain. For a door, this means its height changes very little, but its width or thickness may increase slightly. Because door frames are built with only small clearances around the edges, this sideways expansion becomes noticeable. When the width of the door grows even a small amount, it begins pressing tightly against the frame. Not every wooden door reacts the same way to humid weather. Several factors influence how much swelling occurs. One of the most important is the type of wood used to build the door. Some species have more porous structures that allow moisture to move in and out more easily, while denser woods absorb moisture more slowly. Protective finishes also make a difference. Paint, varnish, or sealants create a barrier on the surface of the wood that slows the rate at which moisture enters. The indoor environment can also affect swelling. Poor ventilation can trap humid air inside a house, increasing the amount of moisture that wood absorbs. Finally, installation plays a role. Doors fitted with extremely tight clearances leave little room for natural expansion during humid weather. Although a swollen door can feel frustrating, the change is usually temporary. Wood constantly adjusts its moisture content to match the conditions of the surrounding air. When the weather becomes drier and humidity levels drop, the wood slowly releases the moisture it absorbed earlier. As water molecules leave the cell walls, the cells contract and the overall size of the wood decreases. This gradual shrinking allows the door to return closer to its original dimensions. The process may take several days or weeks depending on ventilation, temperature, and seasonal humidity levels. Over time, the door begins moving freely again. This cycle of expansion and contraction can repeat throughout the year as environmental conditions shift. Small everyday problems often feel random when we encounter them. A door that suddenly sticks during the rainy season might seem like a minor flaw in the house, but moments like this reveal something deeper about the materials around us. Wood is not a static material like metal or plastic. It once grew as part of a living tree, and even after being turned into doors or furniture, it still responds to changes in the environment. Shifts in humidity and air moisture continue to influence the tiny cells inside its structure. In that sense, a door swelling during rainy weather is more than a small inconvenience. It's a reminder that many ordinary objects in our homes still carry traces of the natural world they came from. Thank you for watching. If you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of simple things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories woven through the smallest details.